And as we get closer into the final shape, more answers on that will start coming up. And the final shape, of course, will have a lot of answers about the nature of those conflicts. That is from senior narrative designer Robert Brooks about the debates surrounding Unveiling and how we are probably going to start getting answers as we get closer to the final shape and with the final shape itself. Okay, cool. Now, I'm going to read you some lore from the Final Shape Collector's Edition. I have spoken with Ikora Ray about the texts humans know as the Unveiling. I have tried to reconcile it with how I understand the light and what I know of the Great Machine. My understanding is imperfect, but I have gleaned this much. The Winnower speaks of convincing you that it is right, of existence as truth, of predation and defection. Nowhere does it speak of malice or hatred or despair. It does not care whether you embrace it or curse it. It simply desires to win and in victory be validated. But for the witness, victory alone is not enough. It must ruin all the Great Machine has touched, from the smallest creature to the greatest planet, destroy everything the light has built, drown hope in bitterness. The witness would have us all curse the Great Machine, refute its gifts, and betray it as the Black Fleet tramples us underfoot. It would make us all Aramis, sick with despair and crushing our own dreams. My friends, I had a live stream yesterday, and the first half of that stream involved me going through the entirety of the Collector's Edition lore, and I gave my thoughts on things, and I gave a whole spiel about the paragraph that I just read out to you. And originally, I was going to upload that segment of the stream and call it a day. But I want to make this separate video, and it is unscripted, but it is what it is. And I want to be more precise and a little bit more blunt with my thoughts. As all of us who are interested and invested in the lore of Destiny 2 know, the lore book Unveiling has been a very, very contentious topic for several years now. The reason why is simple. There are many different interpretations held by many different people concerning the true and correct way of looking at things. When it comes to the gardener and the winnower, when it comes to there being an actual garden or not. And in my Unveiling video, the really big one, you can't miss it, I ultimately did two things. I did my best to comb through as much lore as I could from Destiny 1 through Destiny 2, and to show you what I believe was at the very least the original story behind Unveiling and the Gardener and the Winnower. And the second thing that I did was after I showed you all of this information and I connected the dots for you, I made it clear that Bungie has a track record of both retconning things and also intentionally deceiving people in order to keep things close to their chest for a bigger payoff. And ultimately, this is what I said. I said that even though I've connected all these dots and I've presented you this theory of my interpretation of Unveiling, that it can still go either way. One of the things that I talked about in this video was of course that quote from Robert Brooks. Did I believe that we would be getting answers about Unveiling in the Collector's Edition of the Final Shape? No. For the most part, the Collector's Editions of expansions have interesting lore, but it's nothing groundbreaking or major, especially since a lot of people get their Collector's Editions before the expansion comes out, so obviously they don't want to spoil anything in that lore. However, they decided with the Final Shape to go into some really deep and heavy topics. The true nature of the Witness and its motivations, the true design of its final shape, a deeper look into its race and their own ideologies and what contributed to their fall, potentially some insights into the past and potentially the origins of the Vex. But that is not the true purpose of this lore book, and I want to be very clear as to what that is. The purpose of this lore book Intelligy is very simple. It is Eido attempting to learn as much as she can about the Witness, and to give us that knowledge as a weapon to use against it. That is the purpose of Entelechy. Throughout this lore book, Eido tracks and collects as much information as she can about the witness from before it became the witness, so the communication logs between H&W and RS, and even the records from her own collapse, the whirlwind that happened to the Fallen, and records of the collapses that happened to other species like the Noasis. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry. And ultimately, this is the conclusion that Eido comes to. The witness is a being that can be summed up with one word: malice. The witness doesn't just want to fix the universe with its final shape, it wants to punish it. This isn't it causing necessary cruelty or discomfort for the greater good. This is it going above and beyond that. This is it being unnecessarily cruel and violent. And the reason why is simple. It wants to hurt us. It wants to hurt the traveler. And before we and everyone else that it has hurt dies, it wants to see us curse the traveler and wish that it had never come to us. And I believe that it wants to see this because that gives it vindication. Now, Eido could have just said that and continued on with the rest of her documentation, but she stops, and she brings up the lore book Unveiling. She brings up the character known as the Winnower, and very bluntly uses Unveiling to compare these two characters and say these two are not the same. The Winnower never speaks of malice, cruelty, hatred, or despair. This is what the witness is causing. These two are not the same. And you need to understand the significance of this paragraph, and this cannot be stated enough. If what Robert Brooks said back in the day was true, and that as we got closer to the final shape, we would get answers about Unveiling, I do not see this paragraph in the collector's edition lore of the final shape anything other than something being related to what he was saying. This is Unveiling and its nature being brought up and elaborated on. You guys, if you've watched my videos before, you know that I dig deeply into things. You know that in my Unveiling video, I use the lore to learn about the nature and the personalities and the ideologies of these characters, and from my interpretation of these things, I give you my opinions, and I make these comparisons, and I say what does and does not fit these characters. Eido does that in this lore. She learns about the witness, and based off of her knowledge of Unveiling, she brings up that lore book and uses it as a foundation to compare the character known as the Winnower with the witness, and even if she doesn't straight up say it, she comes to the conclusion that these two are not the same. Again, Bungie did not need to put this in the lore book. There's a chance, even if they didn't have this paragraph from Eido in the lore book, I may have made a video saying what she said. The fact that they have put this in is not a mistake, and it needs to be recognized as that. This is intentional. And even if you still believe that this doesn't change anything regarding Unveiling or the Winnower, then I am going to very respectfully ask you this. If in the final shape there is nothing to do with Unveiling, if the Winnower is never mentioned or never confirmed to be real, if the Gardener is never confirmed to be real, if it is said that the Witness wrote Unveiling, or long story short, if everything that I have told you in my Unveiling video is proven to be retconned or false, then why would Bungie put this in the Collector's Edition lore? If they wanted to make it very plain and clear that Unveiling was purely a parable, that the Winnower was the witness, or that the Winnower never existed, would they not have made it very clear in the Collector's Edition lore? And if they were planning on making this clear in the final shape, then would they not either have had something backing that up in this lore, or nothing at all? But what this paragraph from Eido does is, if it is going to be retconned, if there won't be a Winnower, or if the Winnower is the witness, this simply serves to muddy the waters even further and add further confusion for everyone else. And so, very bluntly speaking, I do not see this lore book as proof of the Winnower not existing or the Winnower being the witness. I'm not going to say that this is confirming that the Winnower will be in the final shape or afterwards, but if anything, this pushes the needle towards the Winnower existing. If you are somebody who understands the lore and you previously disagreed with the idea of the Winnower existing, but you are unbiased and you look at everything and you take everything equally, then you are going to experience the following domino effect. You will recognize the truth in Eido's words that the Winnower's logic is not the Witness's logic. You will realize that these two characters are not the same. The next question will be if the Winnower is a character or purely a concept. This will lead you to look back at Unveiling and see everything that this character stated. You will come to the following realization: that the Winnower actually is a character who claims to have a history that involves us and also the Gardener. And if you go even further back to the Books of Sorrow, even to the collector's edition of Shadowkeep, you will see that the term the Winnower doesn't just represent a concept different to the Witness, but a character who speaks differently than the Witness, a character who has a different relationship with us than the Witness, a character who has a different final shape than the Witness, and a character who is, very simply put, not a concept. I have seen comments from people stating that Unveiling was written either by the Witness or by its race for that race as their own Bible or text of doctrine. However, that is plainly false, because the very first chapter of Unveiling is pleased to meet you. The entirety of Unveiling, save for the story of the garden, is addressed to us, and everything that is said is surrounded by the context that it is being delivered to humanity. This is the truth. Unveiling is not a book, it is not a Bible, it is a letter. It is a piece of direct correspondence between the character narrating Unveiling and us. And so, like I said, the only way that you could have seen things differently than what I've said is if you believed that the Witness wrote Unveiling and was pretending to be this Winnower character. However, you look at the events of Lightfall and you look at Unveiling, and you will see that what the narrator of Unveiling talked about and their relationship with us and the Witness's relationship with us and its goals are completely different, and they never came to pass. I don't want to ramble any more than I need to. I don't want to make this a smaller version of my Unveiling video, but I do want to reiterate this from the stream. Regardless of the theories and interpretations we, the fan base and the community have, there is only one interpretation that matters, that of the narrative team. And Robert Brooks has made it clear that they would begin to give us answers about what that true interpretation was. And if that true interpretation was the complete retconning of Unveiling, the existence of the Gardener and the Winnower, and so on, then I do not believe that what we have in the Collector's Edition lore is a very good way of doing that. If anything, it just adds more confusion to the mess. However, if they are planning on not retconning Unveiling and having there be separate entities known as the Gardener and the Winnower, then this is something that clearly separates the Witness and the Winnower. Again, I'm not trying to make any predictions about what will happen in the final shape. I'm not trying to say we will see the Winnower at all, or the Gardener. But yeah, that's everything that I wanted to cover, and I just wanted to get that out there, and I want all of you to be aware of the implications that this lore has, and more importantly, what this implies when it comes to the narrative team's decision about the correct interpretation of Unveiling. In my opinion, there has always been three main interpretations of Unveiling: that the Witness is the Winnower, that the Winnower is purely a concept, and that the Winnower is an actual being. And I believe that with the Collector's Edition lore that we have, one of those interpretations has been completely debunked. The Witness is not the Winnower. Again, this is just all my opinion and my own interpretation, but personally, I will be very confused if this goes the other way, and in the final shape, we get some form of monologue where the Witness reveals that it is the Winnower or it wrote Unveiling. But we'll just have to see. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye. I truly value you. To the gardener, you are a means to an end. To me, you are majestic, majestic. You are full of the only thing worth anything at all. Transcendence lies not in the denial of attachments and limitations, but in the complete understanding of our confinement and tautological tyranny of existence. The final stage of Buddhism cannot be obtained. There is no escape from samsara, for it is as closed as a lock. This is the inevitable and perfect shape of the truth. It is magnificent, majestic, majestic, and it is what I am.